Hello everybody and welcome to my build video for the Magicka Sorcerer for the Clockwork City patch. Now, this is a build that I would consider likely to get nerfed, but I think if they want to nerf this build, they're going to be hard pressed to do it. I don't see any way you could actually do it, to be quite honest. Now, it does have a few hard counters. The hard counters are going to include, but not limited to, and I'm not going to mention one just because otherwise people will start to do it a lot. The hard counters are going to be Crystal Shield from the Warden skill line and any form of Reflect. Just keep those in mind. But outside of that, this has nearly a 100% kill rate against any player. It is a gank. This is mostly a gank. It does have, against weaker players, enough sustain just about to kite and tank and get some sort of pressure on them. But essentially, it is a gank. You're looking for how to play and get the one shot on a player. We nicknamed it Shocket Launcher. It'll give you some idea of what we're going to do, and I'm going to explain everything related to the build. Now, before I start any detailed build discussion, disclaimer, because I get commented this on every single video. Someone timestamp this when someone asks, please. This video will have content made related to the build, so I will release a montage of clips using this build afterwards. I don't have it currently. I've got the clips. I just haven't made the video. Keep that in mind. I always get asked, this won't work, you haven't proved it. It will work, guys. I've done it on stream every day. It definitely works. It's really good. And pretty much any health is killable in this with a one shot. So, how things work. This is going to be three sort of bar setups. Our main two bars are only for survival and kiting. There is nothing aggressive there outside of one skill, and that's mostly there as a CC. It has a bit of damage on it, but that's not really what it's there for. It's just there to keep some pressure off. The reason I would take that sort of skill, and I'll explain that in a bit, over, say, Room Prison, is it does give us some sort of pressure, so we can at least keep something off us if they're quite squishy until we build up the burst. But generally, we're going to be hitting from people from stealth anyway, and it doesn't matter. The skills. Right. These two bars barely even matter. Just keep that in mind. If you want to change these bars, you can change it however the hell you like. There's only one skill that you're going to want on there at all times. That's Aegis. So, on the dual bar, we are running with Streak. That's going to be to get around fast, but we're using the morph that gives us the orb behind us. It's called Bolt of Lightning. Again, we're playing as defensive as we can on these bars. It's going to help us survive. I hope these guys are just in the stream. I think they're just in the stream. They're not just in. You might be about to get a live demonstration here. Look at that. This guy fucked up. Look at that. Live demonstration in progress. Didn't expect that. Alright, where was I? And the second skill is going to be Boundless Storm, and that's going to help us sort of kite around. It's going to give us fast movement. It also gives resistances, which can be handy when your shields are down. But mostly it's there just to speed us up. So it gives us that major expedition, which can really help us get around pretty fast if we're trying to kite an opponent and wait for our pots to come on. Next skill is the one that is a must-have. Obviously, you're running a shield of some kind, harness, hardened. I actually run one shield on each bar. I've always preferred to do that, just preference, whatever. And skill number 4 has to stay on this bar. That's Bound Aegis. The reason that needs to be on both bars here is because it's also going to be on an overload bar, and we really don't want to have to put it on because it breaks stealth. And like I said, mostly this build will hit from stealth. Again, I'll explain it in a bit. Hang in there. Final skill for me personally is Twilight. Although I have to resummon this off my overload bar, it is really handy to have this because you're going to need a distro on your other bar for Elemental Drain. So on my distro bar, I've got Elemental Drain to help sustain. The sustain on this build is bad, but not terrible. As a gank, it's got a respectable amount, and if I drain a person, I can normally keep my resources up relatively okay in a 1v1 scenario. So I really like that on there. You could always just go Arresto. Just remember your sustain's going to suffer even more with that, but it is an option to do that. Instead, I run Twilight as my heal, and I just sort of kite to summon it with my shields up, etc. from there. Next on that bar is Destructive Reach. That's the Lightning Staff. I like Lightning Staff here because if you want to try and get a heavy attack off, it's way easier to connect something like that rather than the Fire Heavy Staff. It's much more of a guarantee to get your resources back, and that's pretty helpful if you're in trouble. Otherwise, if you're going with a Fire and the target's roll dodging a lot, you're going to have a lot of problems. Yeah. Other shield on here, we're obviously running Harness, so Harness and Hardened. Again, you can adjust those where you position all your bars. I've always preferred having one on each bar, and I sort of weapon swap cancel each shield like that. Just my sort of thing. Aegis again, obviously, and Twilight again, because it needs to share on those bars. You do not want Twilight on your overload bar when I show you how that works. It's very important you don't do that, because it shows you in stealth, which sucks, basically. Our ultimate on this bar is absolutely never cast. It is only there for passive regen from the Alliance War passives, and that is Barrier. So if I was to go on support skills, like so, we go on to Magic Aid, increase your magic recovery by 10% for each support ability slotted. So it's there simply for that passive. No other ulti is any use here whatsoever, so you might as well use it, because you're not going to cast it. All of our ultimate is going into Overload. Before I explain the overload bar, I know, again, it's a bit of a disorganized video, but it's important that I do it this way. I'm going to go in the sets. So, again, this is a gank. We are running 2 Slime Crawl. These are going to be Divines. Infused on the big piece would be nearly the same damage, and probably actually the better trait. It would be marginally less damage, but it would give you a slightly bigger shield. I think I would prefer Infused, but it's whatever. 2 Slime Crawl Shoulder and Helmet, and they need to be medium and heavy to get our Undaunted passives. Then we are running on the body 5 Spinner. So we have these all-in Divines again. That's going to be giving us Magic, spell damage, and penetration. That's going to be the best damaging 5-piece set for this build outside of our main set. Our main set on the jewelry, all spell damage, of course, is going to be Elegant. And this is essential for the build as well, because we are using Overload as our burst here. That gives us spell damage, Magica, and a 20% increase on your light and heavy attacks, which, yes, does include Overload. So we hit very, very hard in this build. Any target is one-shottable. Really, it is a guarantee. We're then running swords with those. So it doesn't matter, as far as I'm informed, whether you use axe, dagger, mace, or sword. I've gone with swords just in case it ever changes, whether people are wrong. But I have been told by my stream that axe, dagger, mace, or whatever would work with this build. I don't know. But I've gone with swords. What does matter is the trait. You're going to want the main bar weapon Nirnhoned. It's marginally better because of Spinners giving us penetration than Sharpened. And the back bar wants to be Sharpened. There's no point Nirnhoning the back bar. You're only getting a small percentage of that weapon damage. It's a bit of a waste. So Sharpened for the pen is much, much better on that weapon. Our back bar then is going to be a Infused Master Staff. Now, if you only have fire, you could use that. Again, you could trait change. It's not that bad. This is from Dragonstar Arena. If you really can't get that, you could go with Elegant, but it's going to make your reach a bit useless. You might as well go Rune Cage at that point. I like this. Like I said, it gives me a decent hit. If I was to hit him with this, we're hitting 3.3k uncrit, and I can't crit, apparently. I don't know. Whatever. It's like 5-6k crit, so it's hitting pretty good, even though we're not in a build designed to use that. Anyway. None of that is that important for the build. What's important for the build is this bar by here. This is our overload bar, and this is where the kill potential is coming from in this build. So if you've survived to this point, well done. This bar is going to be Power Surge. That is for our major sorcery. Crystal Blast, not Crystal Fragment, and I'll explain that in a sec. Hear me out. Hardened Ward as a shield, Inner Light for Magica, and Aegis for even more Magica. The reason you want to go for Crystal Blast when I show you this gank is Blast comes in an arc. So let's imagine this is me, this is my target. Crystal Frag will go in a straight line to that target. Crystal Blast loops to that target. When I do my combo, you'll see why that's so important. What it means is I cast Crystal Blast hard cast, it goes up and over, but at the same time my overload goes flat and my overload hits first and is empowered by Mage Light. You'll see how that works in a sec. So, how the gank works. We start in stealth. We pop Power Surge up. No other buff needs to go on. We then cast Mage Light. Hard cast Crystal Blast. Instantly cast a Fragment. And if they're not dead, we have one more Overload afterwards. I've not done anything less than 24k in a max burst. I've done as high as 80k in this. You can do enormous damage, okay? Against a squishy target, low CP target, you can hit really high. Again, we could do it on a different target here. Shocket in the distance. We've got Alex up top. I'm going to spare Alex because he's on DC and I think they have a bit of a ride. But in the case of Shocket, for example, we can pop Invispot this time. Hard cast into Overload and Overload. And that's how you're going to get your kills. It's impossible to react to that. It's all going to hit you before I'm out of stealth. It's brutal damage. A really solid gank in terms of damage potential. Yeah, my highest so far, I think, is 29k with the Overload and about 16k with a Frag in one burst. That was on a low-level Blaze Blast, so potential to kill pretty much anything is there. It's a really interesting playstyle. I love it, but it is a gank. So, other stuff to mention are food. I'm currently using this food here, Clockwork Citrus Fillet. You could also use Witch Mother. I prefer this to using buy food, but if you're not bothered about sustaining at all, you can go for buy food. It is going to be more damage. You're still going to guarantee one-shots with this. So if you can get this or Witch Mother, I would suggest going this way. It's up to you. But like I said, I haven't really failed any kills apart from very, very rare occasions. Or the one big counter that I haven't mentioned I'm not going to mention because it should never be spoken about. I think the sustain's the way to go. But each to their own, you know, use whatever the hell you like. Our Mundus then is going to be the Apprentice. It gives us the best overall damage here. Mage is slightly less, Lover is slightly less, and we're already overpenning on a light target if we do run that. So Apprentice is the one to go for. And we're going to be a Vampire. That Vampire is going to give us a bit more regen, but more importantly, it's going to make it so we can sneak a little faster, and that's pretty helpful. Now, pots. These are also worth mentioning because you're going to need at least 2 of these, preferably all 3 of these at all times in the build. Number 1, your Godsend pot is this one here. Essence of Invisibility with Speed and Vanish. So, if I was to gank someone, let's imagine here that I was to go on my overload bar. I set up my gank and we go for Shepherd here. And he blocked, god damn it. Whatever. And we killed him, but Drenol is still here. We're then going to be in sight because we're not going to be stealthed, and he gets something off, we're in trouble. But the Invis pot will instantly put us in stealth, and we get that Mage Expedition. It's a great way to get in and out of combat like so. It's a nice way to set yourself up for an escape. It's really useful. The next pot that's going to be really important is this one here. This is the other must-have pot, Essence of Detection. So this is going to give us Major Sorcery, Magicka, and Stealth Detect. If someone gets in stealth against this build, you have such an upper hand if you have this Detect pot on. It's giving you the Magicka back, which is handy if your sustain is low. So in different environments, this can be really important. Say a Nightblade goes into stealth next to you, suddenly you have a way of finding them. That's really valuable. But also, say we get in a sustained fight against weaker players that we do still have a chance against in this build by just switching into Overload for a burst, we also have a Magicka return source. So that one's really important. The last pot that I think is pretty useful for this build is Essence of Invisibility. So this gives you immunity to CCs. That's going to help you on a really bad stamina management. It does have bad stamina management. That's the big weak point of it. And it's going to give you invisibility, so you can use it aggressively. And it's going to give you health. So I generally use this if my Twilight is impacted. I'm trying to move away, and if possible, I want to get invisible. I will sometimes use that pot, but nowhere nearly as often as the other 2. No other pots really worth using here. These are the ones to go for. Right. Anyway, our stats fully buffed. I haven't shown those yet. Sort of thinking through what I haven't done here. We are going to be on as follows. 3.9k spell damage, 46% crit, 45.5k magicka. But remember, we also have 20% extra light attack damage from Elegance, and we're going to get 3.5k penetration from Spinner. On top of that, we've also got our tooltip on Overload for 28.5k and Crystal Blast for 18.3k. And realistically, like I said, any target is possible to hit. All you've got to do is buff, empower, cast, Overload, and dead. And if you don't get them with the one Overload, the second will almost definitely guarantee it. If you don't crit, it's really not the end of the world because the damage is there to get the kills. Final bit to mention, I think, champion points. So, CP, in the green tree, you can honestly run whatever you like, but my preference is 56 Warlord, 39 Sprinter. I do sprint a lot despite that low champion point, despite that low stamina pool. I'm aiming to get out of there. If someone hits me, I don't want to be in a fight. I'm trying to move away. It makes it a lot easier. I want to escape. 76 in Arcanist. Any more is a waste. That's the max recovery you can get from this tree because 15% rounds down. You might as well stack that up. Nothing else is really that useful. 11 in Tenacity just because I have points left over. Doesn't scale that good, but it's a bit of extra sustain. And 48 in Tumbling. You're never going to block. You're never going to buff out. Your stamina recovery sucks already, so there's no point putting points in there. You're never going to bash. So none of those other points are really worth putting things in. We'll go Red Tree next. So 40 in Bastion. You could put more in there if you prefer. I personally prefer moving my regular setup in this tree here. I run this on almost every class right now, which is 37 Hardy, 32 Elemental Defender, 44 Thick Skinned. That's my generic setup for everything. I think it suits more builds than anything else. 52 in Ironclad. Again, that's normal for me. And then everything else in Crit Resist. Yeah, it does the job beautifully. It's a good tankiness. Of course, you're in all Divine's gear here. Don't expect to survive anyone and everything, but this makes you pretty tanky. Blue Tree. This is where things are pumping out the damage, basically. Now, trust me on this. This is min-maxed. Any other arrangement of CP is going to be worse than this setup. So really go with this setup, despite what you may think. We are running in 66 in Master at Arms. Do not put more in there. It's going to be a waste. 66 in Elfborn. That's going to increase our crits. 56 in Elemental Expert for elemental damage. And 42 in Spell Erosion. I've tried putting any of these trees up with penetration CP. So taking points out of here and into one of these. It is less damage on every target, light or heavy. So we're still not quite overpenning. We have 5k from light, 3.5k from spinners, and 3k from Spell Erosion. Unless someone's terrible, in which case they're dead anyway, you want to have that much pen. It really does help. It gives you more overall damage. If you're a lower CP guy, I would suggest, first of all, taking Spell Erosion down to about 25. If you still don't have enough CP, take Elfborn down to, I think it's 61. Elemental Expert 49, and this 61. And then any less, I would just remove from penetration. But I think much less than that, you're going to be struggling a bit to perform a CP campaign anyway. If you're super low CP, this will work perfectly fine in a no CP campaign. I have tried it. Not a difference. It will still kill anything, really. So it is nice. It just doesn't have as fancier numbers as you might like to see. What else have I not mentioned? I'm trying to think here. I know what else I haven't mentioned. So the glyphs on my weapons are actually pretty important here. On my dual wield, you're going with weapon damage and spell damage. That's very rarely going to proc. I only proc that if I'm heavy attacking for stam sustain. But the back bar, to help our stamina sustain, we are then running this one here. So deal magic damage and restore stamina. It's just a little bit of extra stamina management. It's not going to save the day, but in some scenarios it might make the difference. So it's a nice one to have. The important glyph is the one on the lightning staff, because this one, if you're kiting, is going to be a lot of sustain actually. This gives 461 and deals flat damage. It's called the Magicka Steel or something. But that's 461 Magicka every 3 seconds, which works out to about 300 regen. It's a very good glyph. I'm running it on most of my classes right now. It's really, really interesting to use. And again, helps on that low sustain setup to at least get something out of there. Have I missed anything? Shadow is definitely worse than Apprentice. Some people might mention that, Mundus. Crit resist again doesn't matter. None of the resistances matters. It is just a gank build. I think I've covered everything, guys. So, any questions? I know it's quite a complicated setup. Feel free to ask it in the YouTube, in the Twitch, wherever you might be viewing this from. Maybe both. I don't know. Have a play with it. It's really good fun. You can gank literally anything. Yeah, you'll find the counter. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but there's one thing that counts it that shouldn't be in the game. You'll find it out pretty quickly, I'd say, because there's a fair few people using it. But in the end, that's going to get banned pretty soon anyway. So all good, happy days, and then that counter will be gone. Enjoy the build, guys. Oh, race, high elf, unquestionably high elf. Now, enjoy the build, guys. Have fun, and I'll see you again.